Sadnam, we are Jen and Ramtin from Heart Center Revolution.
Our intention with this podcast is to share the best of Kundalini Yoga and conscious living with you so you can live a more heart-centered life. Satnam, and welcome to episode 32 of the Heart Centered Revolution podcast. The topic of this podcast is one of my favorite teachings in Kundalini Yoga. These are some of the teachings that I had the most light bulb moments about and just kind of created much more understanding in my relationships. And these are the teachings about men and women, or masculine and feminine, and how those two archetypes interact with one another. It's really fascinating stuff. And these are some of the things that I'm like, oh, I wish I had learned that when I was like 15. So the recording for these podcasts are a little bit different. This was it ended up being like a 4-hour workshop that Ramtin and I did. And I pulled just the discussion on masculine and feminine that I did. So it's kind of me teaching and talking for a change. And it was the first time we taught this workshop. And so I can tell as I listen back that I was nervous. And so I'm like, go through a lot of information really quickly. So this might be one that you want to listen to a couple times, because I kind of just skate through a bunch of really helpful information. But listening back, maybe we'll revisit some of these topics in a little bit more depth. But I wanted to get so much into this workshop that I just crammed a lot of information into a short discussion. So after the discussion on masculine and feminine energies in a relationship, then we transition to our meditation for the day. So today we're doing Satali Pranayam. And this meditation gives you power, strength, and vitality. So if you have fever or a sickness, you do this Kriya and you kind of cure yourself from within. And then at the very end, I give you a little bit of a reminder that our retreat is coming up. We have a Renew Year retreat happening over the New Year holiday. I'll share more details at the end, but just a reminder that our early bird pricing ends tomorrow, December 5th. So if you're listening to this just as we published it, you can still save some money by registering early. The retreat is actually a good price either way, but you just save a little money. If you don't want to wait to the end, you can learn more about the retreat at heartcenteredrevolution.com/retreat. So before we get into the workshop, I want to do a little preamble to make sure that these teachings are as inclusive as possible. So just for context, the yogic teachings do identify a male and female gender, and they tend to presume people are heterosexual. This is, I believe, because these teachings were written down and documented in the 70s. And so they're taking the yogic teachings, but it's being translated through a certain culture and a time and a place that has obviously changed. And my understanding now is actually they have been working for the past 3 or 4 years on rewriting these teachings to kind of come up to date with our current understanding about gender and relationships. That being said, even though these teachings are written in terms of male, female, and mostly in heterosexual relationships, if you understand the broader context of the yogic teachings, then you understand that there's room for fluidity. So in yoga teachings, we learn that a soul is reincarnated, thousands of times. And we come in as women, as men. And so your soul in yoga teachings actually doesn't have a gender. And we also learn that there are masculine and feminine energies within each human being. And so we all have our own, ratio of masculine to feminine. We all have certain masculine traits and certain feminine traits. So the bigger picture of yogic teachings is more fluid when it comes to gender. So with that said, it's just easier to teach the two archetypes. And so that's what I do in this workshop. There's an archetypal male or masculine, and there's an archetypal female or feminine. And so I'm going to teach those archetypes, but each one of us gets to listen to those experiences and those ways of being and identify what applies to us and what doesn't. There are some more biological teachings, so that women have 2 arc lines and 11 moon centers, for example. That's kind of, that teaching is more like if you are in a biologically female body, but you identify as male, then you would really just have to use your intuition and check in with your life experience to see if you have those 11 moon centers and those more, it's not feminine, but like female traits, like whether those things came in with your physical body or whether the gender you identify with has shifted it. I would imagine that there's people all over the spectrum when it comes to these things. And so you get to determine what applies to you. I'm just here to share with you, like I said, the archetype of what yoga teaches as male versus female. And then the power and the benefit of this is you learn what aspects of these teachings apply to you, and then what aspects of these teachings apply to your partner. So whether your partner is the same sex or a different sex or non-binary, then you just kind of have to do a little more work to identify which pieces of which archetype apply to you and apply to your partner. And then you can observe how those things interact with each other. And so that's the benefit of all of these teachings. It's not to tell you how you are, it's to help hold up a mirror so you might gain some insight into how you differ from your partner or how you and your partner are the same. And so you can deepen your relationship with them and with yourself. I should have started with deepen your relationship with yourself because that's really, I believe, the goal of our whole life on this planet. But that's a whole other podcast. So with that preamble, let's jump into the workshop. So we're going to start by sharing some of the teachings that Kundalini Yoga has about men and women and relationships, because it can really offer some insight into a lot of the common conflicts that we experience and unrealistic expectations that we might have of our partner. Because if we are expecting our partner to see the world the way that we do and to operate the way that we do, we're going to set them up not to fail, but like to not meet our expectations. So the yogic teachings on men and women, you can take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. They are based in like a science or technology, but they come through at a certain time and point in space of culture. So you can take what resonates with you. But the bottom line is that we operate differently in this world. We have different sets of tools. And these differences are to be appreciated. It's not that one is better than the other. It's that we complement each other. And so we want to celebrate these differences. So I'm going to go through some of them, and if you're like me, you'll have some like major aha moments as we learn about some of these fundamental differences. And so one of them being that women have 2 arc lines and men only have 1. So an arc line is an energy channel that moves from ear to ear. And so every human being has one. It's like our little antenna. This is how we pick up energy from the space around us, and also how we pick up messages from the infinite intelligence or from your own intuition if infinite intelligence or universal intelligence doesn't resonate with you. It's just like how our intuition comes into us. And men and women all have one here, but women have a second one that goes from breast to breast. So we have 2 antennae, and this makes us particularly adept at picking up energy in the space that we're in and downloading information and intuition. It helps us be compassionate and empathetic. It helps us rear children, but it also can help us feel overloaded a lot of the time and overly sensitive. And it can create a disparity because we might expect men to have the same sensitivity that we do, and they might not understand how much information we are downloading all the time. And so it's important that we just understand the differences. One of the other primary differences between men and women is that women have 6 tracks in their mind. And so it's like browsers. So we have 6 browsers open, and we've got one cooking dinner, and one like out of the corner of our eye we can see the kid, and the other one is like, okay, I need to do laundry before we go to bed, and I have to wash these whites because I have to teach tomorrow morning. And then we have another one like, I wonder what time he's going to come home. So we've just got 6 thoughts going at the same time, and that's helps us be able to hold a household. And not that you have to, that's just what these things kind of, how they manifested, is because traditionally that was our role. And so we could take care of children and food and the household all at the same time. And so men have one track, very focused, right? So good for getting tasks done and for hunting. Because it's not good if you're in the middle of the wilderness trying to catch food if you're also worrying about what's going on somewhere else. It's more effective if you have like a one track mind in different sense, but like one track open. And again, one is not better than the worst, so better or worse. So having 6 tracks again helps us multitask, but it also can burn us out. If we've got them all running all the time, especially if they're all running like, pardon my French, but like bullshit programming, or running like, I'm not good enough, am I doing this right? If you've got 6 tracks of those open, like you are just depleting yourself. And so when we do that, and when we take in too much information and we're running them all at hyper speed, we get burnout, and so we shut down our sensitivity, and we shut down our compassion, and we shut down, the arc lines are still there, but we try to cut ourselves off from them. And then we're not showing up as who we are, and that does not enable us to show up as ourselves in relationships either. But it affects broader constructs. So women having multi-tracks, we think in ideas, and so we're processing a lot of things, and men think in terms of problems and solving problems. So a perfect example is a woman might be thinking like, oh, it might be nice one day to, I don't know, paint the garage. And so we say we should paint the garage, and then a male mind takes that as this is a task. So I need to figure out what weekend I have available, how much is it going to cost, like what steps are going to go into it. So we just have a different way of thinking.
Hey, present day Jen here. I just wanted to hop in and just share with you that this is an example for me of one of the ways in which my mind operates in a more masculine fashion or a more male fashion. So as I said, the yoga teachings teach that male minds think in terms of like problems and problem solving and projects. And that's what my mind thinks. Like I can do ideas for a few minutes, but very quickly my ideas are turning into, figuring out the steps that are needed, doing a budget, kind of moving through all of those minds. So I know in the beginning I talked about how the male and female traits are taught as binary, but they're not really. Like everything's on a spectrum, and each human being has their own composition of these things. All right, let's go back to the workshop for a discussion of women's moon centers.
Moon centers is another important distinction between men and women. So the moon, we all agree the moon affects the ocean, right? Pulls the tides, massive things of water. So we're smaller, but we're like, 98% water? So the moon has an effect on us as well. It pulls the water in our bodies in a certain pattern, and our water is tied to our emotions. Our emotions follow that water. And so for women, we have 11 moon centers. And as the moon cycles around the earth, it pulls our main point of being through these moon centers. So every 2.5 days, we're in a different moon center. And each moon center has its own priorities, objectives, and emotional way of being. One of them is super snippy. So I feel like I can own up to it. I've had periods where I'm like, why did I say that? Why am I snipping at people? It's not my personality. That's a particular moon center where if you're out of alignment and you're in that moon center, you get real snippy with people. Anyway, so that's just an example of one moon center. And so the moon pulls us through all of these. So every 2.5 days, we feel like we're a different person, or we're experiencing the world from a different gravity point, from a different way of being. So you're not crazy if you felt that way. You wake up and you're like, oh, I'm different than I was last night. That's true. You're in a different moon center. Men have one moon center, and it's at their chin. And so they don't have this experience of
being a different person every 2.5 days. And so that's an important thing that we understand about men and that they understand about us. Interestingly, though, the single moon center at the chin is why in spiritual practices men grow out their beards. Yeah. It's because it acts as an antenna, and it takes in the energy from the sun, and it that counterbalances that moon energy in their chin, because men need it balanced. The solar and lunar energies to be balanced. For women, we have 11 moon centers. We need all 11 moon centers to be balanced, with each other. But that's a whole separate workshop. It's fascinating, though, if you're interested in that. There's a really good book out there about it. But for our purposes, it's just important to note that we have these cycles and these shifts, and that men don't. And so one's not better or worse. It's just an understanding. There's another thing that men and women have that's more of a parallel structure, and that's that we both have polarities. And so as women, we have this identity, this way of being as a woman. So my individuality, my personality, my needs, I get tired, I can be selfish, I have things that I need as a human being, as Jen Parvasi. But we also have this other archetype or role that we play as a mother. And so whether you have children or never plan to have children isn't the point. It's this capacity for creativity, for nurturing. It's that capacity to, if a car falls on your baby, you can lift up a car to get your baby out. And so, I don't know why that made me emotional. I'll have to figure out what moon center I'm in. It's making me cry. But anyway, so as women, we have this polarity between our individual needs and this role that we play as nurturer, goddess, whatever. It's big shoes to fill. And it's important that in our life that we balance those two, that we embrace them both. And in some periods in our life, we lean more heavily on one than the other. So in grad school, I had to lean more on being a woman than my mother nurturing nature. When we start a family, I imagine I'll lean to the other side. But it's important to embrace both, because if you neglect either, then you're not experiencing your whole self as a woman. And men have a very similar parallel polarity, they call it, of the individual man. And so it's the bachelor, that's my word. I'm trying to find a better way to say it, but it's that individual bachelor, that need for freedom, to not be tied down, to not have commitment. So even when men are in a committed relationship, they still have that need. And it's important that as women that we understand that. And it is not a reflection of us or of the relationship. It's a reflection of this polarity. Men have a similar polarity of the man who needs some freedom, lack of responsibility, they need their man cave, they need their boy time, or man time, sorry. But they also have the other polarity, which is the father polarity. So again, regardless of whether they have children, it's this part of wanting to come home to a cozy home, wanting to be comforted, wanting to be supported. And so they have a polarity as well. And there's some conflict between men and women because we get confused when our partner switches their needs or switches their polarity. Whereas a woman one day might be willing to sacrifice everything in order to make the household work, and the next day might be I need some help, I can't do this, or feel they're gonna break down, or do some self-care. That's a terrible example, but you know what I mean. We need to recognize that our partners have both parts to them and honor both parts, and not only expect one or the other. So in the yoga teachings, they say that there are 4 types of relationships, and there are the components that go into a relationship are love, and this is true love, you understand the truth of your partner and you accept them for who they are. Intimacy, meaning you share parts of yourself, physical and otherwise emotional, and then and passion. And so if you have love and intimacy, that's a friendship, because there's no passion. If you have love and passion, then you're in the land of romance, fantasy. That's when you can really idealize someone and be oh, they're the best, because you've got all this love and passion, but you don't have
the intimacy. You don't have that true, deep knowing of who they are at their core, the good and the bad. And then with passion and intimacy, you have the feeling of being in love. And so that can be overwhelming, but it can also lead you to not accept the other person with that deep knowing and that love piece. And then with love and passion and intimacy, then you have merger. And so the way they say it, which isn't my favorite, but I'll share it with you because it's the teaching, is that it's one soul and two bodies. So you kind of have this joined, I prefer to think of it as like a joined aura. So I feel like he and I have the same auric field rather than the same soul. But they teach it as one soul, two bodies.
So it's jackpot, in fact.
Jackpot! It is a winner. That's funny. So those are like the 4 types of relationships and things to look out for. And so if you feel like you're in one of them, you can identify what's missing and either add it or maybe you need to shift your relationship.
Present day Jen here again. We just went through those different types of relationships pretty quickly, so I wanted to review them for you so you could maybe think through your current relationship. So the 3 factors that you want to think about are love, intimacy, and passion. So love is that like tenderness, that heart-centered connection. Intimacy is true intimacy. So knowing the good and the bad of the other person. If you're idealizing your partner, you don't have true intimacy. And if you're hiding parts of yourself from them, I mean, I guess we all keep some things to ourselves, of course. But if you're hiding who you are from your partner, then you don't have true intimacy. And then passion is that fire. So those are the 3 things to think about: love, intimacy, and passion. So if you have love and intimacy, then what you have is a friendship. And so if your romantic relationship is there where there's love and intimacy, but you're missing passion, you might want to work on ways to add that passion into the relationship. And then if you have love and passion, so your heart is connected, you're all full of fire for them, but you're idealizing them or you're hiding parts of yourself, you might want to look to add that intimacy. And then if you have intimacy and passion, so you're, sharing yourself honestly and openly, and you're full of fire, you might want to look on bolstering that heart connection and adding that love. Because when you have love, intimacy, and passion, then you have what the yogi relationships idealize as merger. And I think as a woman, I just resist the idea of merger because I feel like then historically or culturally, that means the woman is like erased and kind of disappears into the relationship. So I prefer the word like union. Like that's a true union of 2 people is when you have love, that heart-centered connection, you have intimacy so you can truly be yourself and your partner can be themselves and they're accepted, like you accept the light and the shadow, and then you have that passion. So there's some fire in the relationship. So let's rejoin the workshop and we're going to talk about the pranic exchange, which is what happens the first time you meet someone you're attracted to.
There's this whole exchange that happens in a matter of a couple of seconds the first time you meet someone. And that exchange gets imprinted in the woman forever. They will remember that for the rest of their lives, subconsciously. Men, it lasts 28 days. So 1 full moon cycle, and then it's left. So again, one is not better than the other. I would prefer to have left some of those pranic exchanges and forgotten about people, but we have long memories as women.
At this point in the workshop, one of the students shared that she thought that this part of the pranic exchange, like not sticking around for men, helped men, make it easier for men to like go back to old relationships that may not have worked out because they kind of forget what that energy was like. And that women are more likely to remember that it didn't work or kind of remember the mismatched energy and to stay away from prior relationships that were unsuccessful.
And I feel like it makes it harder for women to let go. Yes. There are other reasons for that I'll get into now, actually. So the auric imprint. So the first time
or whenever, not the first time, but when a man and woman have sex, then that woman's aura is imprinted by the man's projection. So we carry an imprint of their projection in our aura for 7 years. The purpose being, so all of us have a projection. We have a vibration that we project out into the world. And you could feel as we all chanted, our projection got stronger. But it's like our unique vibration. It's like a fingerprint. And so when a man and a woman have sex, the man's projection gets imprinted in the woman's aura for 7 years. And the purpose being, if that woman gets pregnant and has that man's child, that imprint is there. It's like it's part of the child rearing process. That man can be present, even if physically he's not present. There's like a presence there. So back in the day, it wasn't as much of an issue. And so what happens is in modern times, women often have multiple partners. And I'm not making a judgment. It's just a fact that then you get imprinted with the projection of all of the partners that you've had, and it clouds up your auric field. And it makes it hard to be intuitive, and it muddies up your projection out. It gets a little muddy is the exact right word. Because your auric field is now cluttered with other people's projection. So you can, the meditation, Kirtan Kriya, is good for clearing that. And that's why it's recommended in the yogic teachings to have commitment be a precursor to a sexual relationship. It's not being prude or frigid. Most yogis actually aren't. It's more about the energetic exchange, particularly for the woman. It's a big deal because you're taking on a lot, more than just like that encounter. It affects you later.
Present day Jen here again. So this idea of the auric imprint is cause for much conversation within the yoga community. I think even as we were continuing this conversation, one of the students in the classroom was like, that sucks, and was kind of talking about like how it feels unfair that, you know, the male female experience of sex is literally energetically a different experience. And like these are some of the teachings, the pranic exchange and the auric imprint are some of the things that when I learned, I wished I had been taught as a teenager so that I could have a deeper understanding of like the energetic and emotional interaction that occurs between myself and another human being, particularly as a female, like all the sensitivities that I have. This information is just so valuable to have so that you can make educated choices. It's not about not sleeping with someone that you want to sleep with. It's about making educated choices. And is that an energy? Is that a projection that you want to carry with you in your aura? And this is not like a moral discussion about what's morally right and wrong. So if hearing about this, you're like, oh no, like I've got some projections I want to release. No worries. Like you're perfectly where you're supposed to be. Every choice you've ever made is part of your personal growth, your karma or your dharma. So you're either living your purpose or you're learning lessons that will get you on purpose. And so there's no need for shame or guilt or anything like that. But if these teachings are resonating with you and you want to take steps to release those projections in your aura more quickly, the meditation to do that is Kirtan Kriya. And we have a great resource to learn how to do Kirtan Kriya. If you go to heartcenteredrevolution.com/Kirtan Kriya, it's KirtanKriwa. heartcenteredrevolution.com/Kirtan Kriya. So that page gives you the benefits and like written instructions, but there's also a link to sign up for a free 10-day meditation where every day for 10 days you get a video leading you through Kirtan Kriya. So if you practice that regularly, it'll help clear your aura right up. So that is it for our discussion part of this episode. We'll now transition to our meditation. So the meditation we're going to do today is called Sitali Pranayam. And so this one is it gives you power, strength, and vitality. And Yogi Bhajan said that if you're in a position or in a situation that's aggressive, or if you're feeling aggressive, this is a great pranayama to give you an edge over the situation. And so we will get started. Bring yourself into your comfortable seat. Elongate your spine, sitting up nice and tall. Open the heart center. Roll those shoulders up, back, and down. Crown of the head comes up tall. We're going to go ahead and close our eyes. Tuck that chin back very gently so that you can feel the space at the back of the neck. And then we'll begin with a couple long, deep breaths. Inhaling, filling up the belly, the ribs, and the chest. Exhaling, chest, ribs, and belly. This is all through the nose. Inhaling, belly, ribs, and chest. Exhaling, chest, ribs, and belly. Beautiful. So the meditation today, the Satali Pranayama, we're actually going to inhale through our mouth. Many of the pranayama practices that we do, you inhale and exhale through the nose. And so inhaling through the mouth is just another technique to use. And we're also going to inhale through a rolled tongue. So it's kind of like the taco tongue that kids make. So you roll your tongue and stick it out just a little bit so that the tip of your tongue is out of your mouth, but most of it is in your mouth. This will require you to kind of pucker your lips a little bit. And then with that rolled tongue, gently or just slightly pushed out of your mouth with your mouth puckered a little, you're going to inhale over that tongue. And then you're going to exhale out your nose. So we're still doing full inhales and exhales. We're just inhaling over that curled taco tongue. Exhaling out the nose. So continue this breathing pattern. Eyes are closed and focused at the third eye. Inhaling deeply over the tongue. Exhaling completely through the nose. You want to avoid any whistling sound. So if your inhale is whistling, adjust your tongue position. Still getting complete and full inhales. And complete exhale. As you inhale, the taste of your tongue might be bitter, but over time it'll become sweet.
Focusing those eyes at the third eye, we'll take 2 more. Inhaling over curled tongue. Exhale through the nose. Last one, inhale. And exhale. Beautiful. Inhale deeply through both nostrils. Suspend the breath for a moment. Squeezing the body gently like a tube of toothpaste, feeling the energy go up the central channel of the body, out the crown of the head. Your eyes are at the third eye. Exhale, relax the body, relax the breath. Just be. Be the observer, observing your mental, emotional, and spiritual state. Did you feel a shift from this 3-minute pranayama, this Satali pranayama? It says that this pranayama gives you power, strength, and vitality. Whenever you get a fever, sickness, or discomfort, you should do this pranayama. It is the cure from within. Go ahead and blink open your eyes. Get grounded in the space where you're in right now. Beautiful.
So that is it for episode 32 of the Heart-Centered Revolution podcast. I do want to remind you we have our Renew Year retreat coming up at the end of this year. So it starts December 28th, 2019. And this retreat I'm so excited about. I'm excited just to be there. Like, this is exactly how I want to spend, the New Year transition, is just in conscious community, building connection. So we created this retreat specifically to help you clear your mind, body, and spirit for the new year. So we're going to do teachings and practices and food to help you release emotions that are stored in your body and in your mind, release thoughts and beliefs that are holding you back. We're going to connect with our true selves, or our Sat Nam. We're going to really relax and rejuvenate our nervous systems. We're going to practice quieting our mind so we can tune into our heart and our intuition. We are going to chant our hearts out and eat really light, delicious food so we can raise our vibration. We are going to learn to tune into our body and our intuition, and we are going to set inspired intentions for 2020. Intentions that will serve your soul and uplift the people around you. And to do all of this, Ramtin and I are going to guide you through daily Kundalini yoga and meditation practices in the morning. We're going to do daily gong baths. In the evening, we're going to do combinations of like meditations and then guided visualizations and practices. We're also going to have downtime so that you can journal, integrate, go for hikes, do whatever you feel called to do. Like, how good it feels after like one yoga class. Imagine practicing yoga, a full practice every day, and then a meditative practice in the evening, and just to have a gong bath every day. But even though we're going to be practicing regularly, the beauty of Kundalini yoga is that all different levels of experience can practice together. And so we have people already coming that are pretty new to Kundalini, and we have people coming that are teachers, and everyone can practice together and kind of get what they need out of the experience. So early bird pricing ends December 5th. And so that's the day after I'm publishing this episode. And so if you can catch early bird pricing and you come with a friend or a partner, like if you guys are able to share a queen bed in a private room, this retreat, which is 5 days and 4 nights, including accommodations and food, costs less than $800. That is the best value I've ever seen for a retreat. And the reason we were able to do that is we got a great deal on the house,
And we're partnering with a nutritionist, so we don't have to pay like the extra for catering. We're able to just pay food cost and pass that savings on to you. So even after the early bird pricing ends, it's still a good value. But if you are interested and you want to take advantage of those savings, then you'll need to sign up before or on December 5th. So the website to sign up is heartcenteredrevolution.com/retreat. RETREAT. If you have any questions, you can email me at jen@heartcenteredrevolution.com and I'll get back to you. If you still want to hear more, there's a video on that page where Heather, the nutritionist, and I talk about kind of how this retreat came into being. So that's again at heartcenteredrevolution.com/retreat. Or Heather, the nutritionist that we're partnering with for this retreat, is the guest on our episode 29 of the podcast. So you can check that episode out if you're needing more information before you make your decision. And just know, whether you attend the retreat or not, we love you so much. We appreciate all of your support. I know there were a lot of links in this episode, and so they will all be on the webpage for this episode, which is heartcenteredrevolution.com/episode 32. So all the links will be gathered there for the meditation, for the retreat, and any other links that I mentioned. All right. Thank you so much for listening. We love you. Sat Nam.